Again, if you have, here we go. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday interview. Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific, we are here to put on the mortgage industry's best sales meeting. Today is my special guest. I have Louise Thaxton, industry legend and advocate for the military. What's up, Louise?
Hey, I am living the dream in Leesville, Louisiana today. Just living the dream.
Good. Well, hey,
Thanksgiving week, Dave. It's Thanksgiving week. So much to be thankful for.
Well, we're going to talk about all the things we have to be thankful for. And we're going to talk about how we can show how thankful we are and how we can help military families create wealth and prosperity with better mortgage decisions. So guys, before we get into that, I want to just go into our Facebook group for a couple reasons. One, to me, this is a place where we engage when we're not on the call. So like right now, it's a live, interactive mastermind session. If you're on Facebook, in our Facebook group, this is live and interactive. You can comment down below with questions or takeaways. I want to review our Facebook group real quick, and then we'll get into our interview. So big news is obviously we have Louise Thaxton. Again, she really is an industry legend. And as I get into this interview, if you're new in the business and you haven't heard Louise, you'll know what I'm talking about. I want to shine a light on a few announcements. I mean, our group, by the way, is getting just crazy how busy it is. I know for a fact during this call, we're going to cross 5,000 people in this group. So 5,000 amazing mortgage professionals are active in this Facebook group. I do want to make sure that anybody who has helped the military with a mortgage coach total cost analysis, and you're willing to share it, I have a post here. It's in announcements. Please share your TCA. The whole idea of masterminding, why we do this, is because we learn faster and we learn better together. So please share your TCAs in this group. Or in this thread. I will also make sure we share Louise's total cost analysis. I did want to shine a light on this post from Doug Wilkins. Doug is now a regular contributor in Rate Watch. And I thought as much as the seller buy down is trending, any ammunition you can get to talk about how, hey, listing agents, we can help you sell your homes, especially the ones where you're having to do a price reduction. Great ammunition, Doug. Thank you for this post. I also want to shine a light on this one. We're seeing a lot of our mortgage coach members doing lunch and learns around the seller buy down. So if you have used any slides in your realtor lunch and learn, please share those in the group. So Louise, I know you are a follower of the group. Any takeaways before we get into the interview, or any thoughts you have on the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind?
Oh, I love it. And I just think, we on my team have encouraged everyone to join the group. The people I coach some individuals. I say the first thing you need to do is get a mortgage coach and join the group. So I think it's wonderful. And wow, are you kidding me? You're going over 5,000? Dave, what a rock star. Hey, and I knew you back when, Dave. I knew you back when.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, hey, I knew you back when. I remember the first time I saw you speak was at a Tim Brahim's business planning event. I don't know what year it was.
2006.
2006. I think it's important before we get into the full interview that you just tell a little bit about that story of how you just overcame significant adversity in your life and really, became a legend in the mortgage business. I think it'll also be cool for any new loan officers that are getting into the business that are listening on that. So you mind kicking us off with that?
Oh, I don't mind at all. In 2005, I actually wanted out of the mortgage business. I was in a little town of Manny, Louisiana, population 2,900, closing about 5 to 7 transactions a month. I'm a unit girl because we have low loan amounts, so I'm always counting units, doing about 5 to 7 transactions a month, but really looking for purpose and passion. And Hurricane Rita hit one of my husband's farming operations, and destroyed it. And at that point, I needed some income to supplement what we had lost. I asked him, how long is it going to take to rebuild that? He said a year. And I go, oh my gosh. Well, there's a military town that I'm sitting in right now, just south of that little town of Manny, Louisiana. And I traveled there and met a real estate agent who gave me an opportunity. And I watched her, really, I can say, going back to that real estate agent, I watched how she interacted with the military, and she loved those soldiers. She loved the guys and gals that were serving. She'd grown up in this town, and she mentored me, not in knowing VA loans, but how to listen to their stories. Whenever she referred someone to me, she would always say, here is, Sergeant Brown. He's been deployed 3 times. He's got 2 children, but, he hasn't got to see them much. She always told me part of their story. And really my heart, this first time I sat across from a young man just back from Iraq at that time, this was in September of 2005, and it was in that the Hurricane Rita happened in October of 2005, where I had to make up my mind, what am I going to do? And it was in October that I came to Leesville and literally started in a town that nobody knew my name. Nobody knew anything about me. And the big story back then that I spoke on Tim Brahim's stage day was quadrupled your business in 1 year. But I kept a journal through all of it. But when I fell in love with serving military clients, it's something about getting that passion going. I literally quadrupled my business in less than 90 days, because in November of 2005, I closed like 8. In December, I closed 16 units. And then in January of 2006, I closed 31 units. And Leesville, Louisiana only has a population of 8,000. Of course, it is right beside a military army post that had, I think at that time, I want to say 15,000 soldiers there. But I just fell in love with it. And I had been wanting to get out of the business, but then after sitting across and serving those military clients, I fell in love with the business again. I found a purpose of serving those who serve. Well,
it's a magical story for any mortgage professional. I mean, I think it's always a dream to quadruple our business in 1 year. And obviously, depending on where you're at with your production level in this call, like if you're closing 1 loan, that's not a lot of loans. If you're closing 5 loans a month, that's a lot of loans. And I hope that anybody who's listening to this, whether you're brand new in the business or whether you've been in the business for a long time and you're struggling, listen up, because while this call is about serving the military and we're going to provide strategies and ideas, this call is about finding purpose and then taking that purpose and integrating it in your mortgage practice so you can really serve people. And one more thing I want to point out before everybody hears it. Did you hear Louise talk about, she knows the people's story, she knows their stories, and whether you're serving the military or you're serving any family, know their stories, know their hopes and dreams. So Louise, one more question, and then let's get into this serving military strategies. You were a loan officer, you were a team leader. Now you lead a much bigger group. Could you just kind of share that so everybody gets a feel for where you come from?
Sure. At that time, there were approximately 5 or 6 people on my team, maybe 7, and that's grown into 65 on my bigger team. And then I moved. I had a retirement plan. Let's just say this: I had a retirement plan that I would build a team. My son-in-law, Mike Giddens, is one of them, and he actually did the TCAs for us today, and he's actually worked for me for 18 years. God bless him. He's worked for his mother-in-law for 18 years, Dave. You think about that. And, talking about the mortgage coach, it is one of those things that with my team, anyone I coach, I say that's the first thing you need to do is get signed up for mortgage coach, because you see, that was one of the tools I used when I came into Leesville and no one knew my name. And I didn't even have an office here at that time. I said, this is what I'm going to provide for every active duty military buyer. I'm going to provide this TCA. So it was always part of my strategy of having that. Right now I have a team, and my team last year closed 401 units. The bigger team that I have, my personal team, did 401 units. And then the bigger team, we did, I believe, 1,300 units with the whole 65 that in offices in Texas, Colorado, and a lot of places in Louisiana.
Love it. I love it. And you are just amazing. So before we get into total cost analysis, so by the way, if you're a new loan officer listening in on this, TCA, whatever we say, that's total cost analysis. And I want you to think of it as just, it's a way to show a family that, 1, I listened to you, and 2, I care more about the loan, I care more about you hitting your family goals and your hopes and dreams than I do about the loan itself. That's what a total cost analysis is. is it really helps you, provide this roadmap of wealth and success. So before we get into the TCA, let's just talk about your bigger strategy to serving the military. So if there's a loan officer on this call, regardless of whether they want to specialize in serving the military, or you just want to make sure that within their customer database, they're comfortable serving the military. If you could just share some bigger ideas and thoughts, almost talk to us like, you're leading this community as a leader, what are some of the most important things to consider?
Well, so I think that one of the things that's people are going to be very surprised when I say this is that you need to read the military books. If you look behind me right now and you see the books, and you need to watch the movies, because how can you really have empathy or really understand the culture and core values of military clients if you haven't read the books and you haven't watched the movies? Unless you're a combat vet. As I always say, if you're a combat vet, you wrote the book. I mean, you were in it. But as civilians, Dave, how can we really know what they have gone through? And to me, when I have someone that just got back from Afghanistan and they're sitting in my office, how would I know if I hadn't read the books and I hadn't watched the movies? So those are books and movies that do not have the word mortgage in them, but it's something that literally, as we're going to serve active duty military clients in this day and time, you need to know that. You need to understand that is one of the I would say the starting point is that we have a clue, Dave. We have a clue of where they've been. A lot of us have been first-time home buyers, and we understand first-time home buyers because remember when we bought a house. But many of us, the majority of us, have not been to combat, come home, and then try to reintegrate into civilian life. All the time we're trying to get our family in a safe spot. I have heard more than one active duty military that their number one thing they want to do and buy is I've got to put my family in a safe place because I'm probably going to be deployed again. I've got to put them in a place that I feel comfortable. I'm going to leave them for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. I'm going to be leaving them. I've got to put them in a safe spot. So it's more than just a roof over a head where you can decorate everything real nice and have a great front yard. This is a place of safety for them because they're about to go back to war. So those are understanding the culture and core values. No man left behind is part of the warrior ethos. And to me, that's my commitment that I will do my best, that I'm talking about my brother or sister that's out there that is serving. I want to do my best for them and give them the best financial advice possible. My team understands this, that when we are dealing with active duty military clients, many of them need to close quickly. So you need to have a setup that you can close quickly. If you can't close quickly, then you need to figure out what's wrong, because they're living in a hotel room. They brought their kids maybe across the country, and they've got just picture it, Dave. Picture you and your little children in a hotel room waiting on the clothes. So just understanding of where they are in their life, where they are in this journey of serving our country, and then where they're going to be. And that's a whole lot of asking about their story, as you said.
Yeah, you mentioned books to read. What are a few of the books that you recommend anybody read, not just mortgage professionals, but what are books that you recommend to this community right now?
Well, Outlaw Platoon, of course, I travel with Sean Purnell, so but Outlaw Platoon is an amazing book, and it's a New York Times bestseller. And Sean literally tells a story, not just of himself. And a lot of war books talk about themselves, and I'm not putting that down, but his book is more about the story of his soldiers, and they all had different personalities. So Outlaw Platoon is one. I would say definitely watch the movie American Sniper. To me, have you watched that movie, Dave? American?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's super hard to watch, but super incredible.
But you know what? Yeah. To me, everyone should watch that movie just to see how it impacts families. It wasn't so much a war book as it was, this is what happens to families after war. And then this is a wonderful book too. I just looked at this, Unbroken, which I don't know if you've watched the movie, but it's, as with most things, it's a better book. And that's more World War II. But you know, warriors are warriors. So even if you look, so Sean Parnell's Outlaw Platoon, Chris Kyle's American Sniper, a few. And if you have, and this is On Killing or On Combat by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, actually talks about the challenges that our Vietnam veterans went through. And that, you know, we are serving Vietnam veterans maybe buying their first house, Dave, because they get this. Many of our Vietnam veterans did not feel worthy to use their VA eligibility. And so gradually, hopefully, they're getting the honor that they deserve. You know, they felt rejected by society when they came home in the 60s and early 70s. And so On Combat and On Killing by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, he's an Army psychologist. It helps you to understand what did our Vietnam veterans go through. And we're still putting Vietnam veterans in a home. Many of them, I have heard stories of Vietnam veterans weeping at a closing table, buying their first home because someone finally said, you do deserve to use your VA eligibility. You can use it. Do not, and they couldn't buy it any other way but that VA, using their VA eligibility.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know I interviewed Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership. It's
my goodness. I should have said that book because it's amazing.
Well, it's amazing. And the reason I want to advocate, one, you did not refer it yet. And I know it was on your list. But guys, this is one of the most important books, just in terms of leadership books. I mean, I think it's one of the, you know, yes, it's a military story. And yes, Jocko and Leif tell these amazing military stories. But then they bring it back and they help you be just a better leader. It's like, hey, here's the military story. And then every time they tell a military story and tactic, they're like, and now here's the business side of it. So I'm a big fan of that book. And
now, have you read this book? Have you read Discipline Equals Freedom? So this is an amazing book. Because what is the one thing that we as loan officers need? Discipline.
Yeah, you're right.
Actually on my desk, just sitting here for me to like take something from it. It is so powerful. And Jocko is an amazing, humble guy.
No doubt. By the way, if you're watching this interview and a recording, down below, I'm going to put a link to my interview with Jocko. And I also, in a separate call, I interviewed Leif, his co-author and another American hero. So down below, check it out. So let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about the perfect loan process for a military family. And anytime you want to kind of call out the differences, and then wherever you want to get to where like we talk about total cost analysis, I'll pull that up on my screen whenever we get there. And by the way, one last thing, everybody, this is a mastermind. So if you have a question for Louise, post it. If you're in Facebook, post it in comments. If you're in Zoom, post it. And by the way, if you're watching the recording, post it in YouTube. So ask questions and we'll get to them. But Louise, walk us through that perfect loan process on how you serve military families and how you teach your team to do it.
Well, number one is to have the Army calls it a METL, METL. It's a mission essential task list. And it's a list of everything in writing that you're going to do from day, I say day one, it's from the first minute that you realize there is a sergeant and he's either walked in your office or you know his name, is what are you going to do every step and who is going to do those steps. So having a mission essential task list. Now, some people would say a checklist. The military call it a METL. And, you know, many times we don't have that checklist, Dave, because we know what we're doing. We do it every day and we do it numerous times a day. But it actually instills confidence in a military buyer that when you lay it out for them in writing, here's the way this process is going to go. Here is every step and the timeline for which we can make it happen for you. And you give it to them right when you meet them. Here's my process. Here's the people that are going to do it. You tell them what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and who's going to help you do it, and what is their participation in it. Very, very key is that you always share, and what do we need from you? Military get that, and they are ready. I always say military, they follow orders very, very well. And so if you give it to them on day one, here's the plan. This is how this is going to roll. But in order to accomplish the mission, we need your participation, and we need it by when, you give them the order. So I call it day one mentality, is to get everything on day one. Just get everything on day one. And people say, oh, well, no, well, if you need to spend 2 hours on a loan app, then you need to spend 2 hours on a loan app. But you go through that process. You take 2 hours or however long it takes you. Maybe it takes you an hour, maybe it takes you 30 minutes, but you go through the entire process with them, either by Zoom, by Skype, across the desk from you, but they see your pretty face and they see that you're a human being and they see you care. I always did this, and there again, I'm leading a team now, Dave, as I shared with you, but my team does mortgage coach. And, I always say is we've got to show you some of the different, even if you say, well, there's only one loan I can do is a VA loan. Well, but let's show you some ways that you can build wealth in the next 2 or 3 years. The next thing I would say is to take time to listen to the story, and has nothing to do with loan application. I always ask, how long you've been in the military. And then one of my questions that is not on the loan app, Dave, is how many deployments have you had? And so that's going to tell you a lot about their story. I had one guy, he walked in, I said, how many years in the Army? And he said 9. And I said, how many deployments? And he said 5. Now that's a lot, Dave. 5 deployments in 9 years is a lot. And my next question, I'm just standing there with him, and I ask him, are you married? But it almost it might have even been inappropriate at that point for me to say, are you married? It's like, really? And his response, it just broke my heart, because he said, not now. Because most of us don't understand that the statistics that their higher divorce rate for our military clients is that we need to connect the dots with all of these deployments. Less than 0.4 of 1% of our population is serving right now. So that means more deployments for fewer people. And so getting their story and finding out something about their story, showing them this is how we're going to do it. Here's the steps. And you know what? Everybody may have different, like some people turn it over to an LOA, some people do it themselves, but whatever your process is, have it in writing. And this is what we failed to do, to have a mission essential task list that it's in writing, that you can send them via email, or you can have it printed out and show them. And this builds confidence, because there is none of our military that would go out on a mission that wouldn't have a mission essential task list. They know how to accomplish a mission. And they have the task list. What's it going to take to accomplish the mission?
Love it. So hopefully everybody is taking notes. I always love it. First of all, those of you who are asking questions, thank you. I'll bring those in to the conversations in a few minutes. Those of you that are just taking notes, like step 1 is this, step 2 is that, share those down below too. Make your notes public so that we all learn together and we all get the same takeaways. So you also said something when you talked about the total cost analysis. You said, you know what, even if the family knows, they only qualify for one loan, they only have one option, it's interesting, your why, the why you provided the total cost analysis is different than most loan officers. Because I think most loan officers, their why when they're meeting with the family is to get the social security number so they could do the transaction, and it's like, oh, I don't need to show how to pay off your mortgage early and build wealth. I don't need to do all this. And they're either like, I don't want to use the word lazy, but they're either like they don't want to do more than they need to, or they're afraid that they're going to create confusion and hurt themselves. But yet you always have this why that's bigger than just, I'm going to build enough rapport to do the deal. So could you speak to that in a little more color? And then let's get into a TCA and help, new loan officers.
One of the things I think that we as loan officers fail to do is get the story up front. This is where you're building rapport, where you're listening and you're actually writing down part of their story. How many deployments did you have? Where were you deployed? How long were you gone? Oh, that must have been hard on your family. Where did you guys live then? I mean, it's part of the loan app, but you're actually finding out their story. I have LOAs and loan officers that that take my pre-quals now, Dave, but I did a pre-qual the other day, and my ops manager, she goes, "Oh my God." And I go, "Hey." And she said, "Did you get all the information?" I said, "Well, let me tell you this. I got their story. I know their story very well. So just know you this, I know their story." And it's been so bouncing back on that. It's amazing how many heroes you'll find as you're talking to them when they start telling you. I'm not kidding you. It is possible for me to go into an hour conversation when I find out that literally their story is actually part of a book that's been published, or maybe they were in that battle. And so, when you get to that point, really, are we talking about rate, Dave? Are we talking about rate? Are we talking about a loan officer that cares about you, that cares about your service to this country, that cares about where you've been, that cares about where your family's going to be while you go again? This goes beyond rate. This goes beyond rate. And to me, that is one of the key things that we fail to do as loan officers, is just establishing that I'm here for you. This is what I do, and this is why I do it. Now, but I have, and I don't know if this is a good time to share with it or not, but since the very beginning, when I came to Leesville, I said, if I am going to serve military clients, I'm going to find a nonprofit and I'm going to donate to it. And for many years, it was the Fisher House, then it was the Boot Campaign, then now it's AWI, our nonprofit. But I would always tell my clients, just so you know, this is the nonprofit that I donate a portion when this deal is closed, and I'm going to do it in your name or in the name of someone you want. I'm going to make this donation, to honor maybe someone that they knew or something. So that's all part of getting to know them and sharing with them not just what you do. What does Simon Sinek say? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's do this. Let's get into a couple of these total cost analysis. By the way, if you're on this call and you have a total cost analysis where you helped a military family make a better decision, build wealth with real estate, raise your hand, share in comments. Let us know that you have something to share, because we're 27 minutes into this. Louise and I have some prepared things we want to share, but we're going to have a few minutes in the last 15, 20 minutes to, one, answer questions, so post them down below, and two, talk about anything else. So Louise, I have pulled up on my screen a total cost analysis from Mike. Why don't you tell us who Mike is again, and then walk us through this mortgage strategy.
Well, Mike is on my team, and Mike Giddens, and he's part of my team, and he is amazing. He loves Mortgage Coach, and he is a believer.
Good job, Mike.
Yes, he is a believer. So this mortgage coach analysis is actually when someone comes in, and if you do VA loans, you understand that the funding fee, it goes up higher when you use it the second time to 3.3%. Now, the challenge can come with that is on a $300,000 loan, that can be a pretty significant funding fee for a VA loan, because what you're going to be doing is you're going to be adding that to the sales price. So you've got the sales price, on top of that, you got the 3.3% funding fee. So what we like to do is counsel. Now, not all of your active duty military can utilize this of the 5% down. The reason for the higher funding fee is that VA assumes that if you use it for the second time, that you have already sold a house and maybe you have money from that house that you can put down on this house. I mean, that's the reasoning behind it, that this is not your first rodeo. You've bought a house and maybe you sold it. Well, that's all good on paper. It's just many times it doesn't work out that way. If you're dealing with active duty military, they could only be staying in this house for 2 to 3 years. So once you add that 3.3% to that loan amount, it could put them upside down, because if it appraises for $300,000, and I don't have my glasses on to see what, but I'm just saying it from memory, is that they could be upside down in 2 or 3 years, Dave, if they don't put money down and they're using that if they do 100%. So we did this. If you do have 5%, would it save you money? And absolutely, it would save you lots of money, because number one, if you put 5% down, the funding fee goes to 1.5% versus 3.3. And that would be the first counseling I did, just to show them that, like, here's one of the things that you can do, that if you have 5%, this is going to save you this much money. If you're planning, I think we did it at 3 years, like what would be the equity in 36 months. You know, for many of our, yeah, there you go. So it would actually save them over the long haul $8,000. But if you look at the balance remaining, so if you look at that right there where you are, the balance remaining, if you finance the 300, the entire thing plus the funding fee, you're at 296. But if you did the 5% down, it's 276. So you see the difference in equity. Now, this is where you have to know their story, Dave, because if they're going to rent that home, then the funding fee may not matter to them. They don't want to take their hard-earned money and put it down on a house that they may keep for 10 years. I'll never forget the soldier. This was, I don't know, it was probably 2007, and I always remember him. He was like the most amazing person. He spoke 5 languages. He did a lot of stuff that he would be gone for a week and then be back. He told me he said, if I told you what I did, I'd have to kill you. And I said, well, never mind. Just don't tell me what you do. But he spoke 5 languages, okay? And he had been in the military since he was 18. He was 36. And he said, right when I met him, we were starting to talk. And he says, oh, I just want you to know I'm going to retire from the Army rich. And I was like, really? You're going to retire? Oh, okay. I mean, it's good to know. And he goes, no, I have 6 rental houses right now. And I go, wow. And he said, everywhere I have gone since I was 18, I have bought a house, and when I left, I turned it into a rental. And he had 6 rental properties. Now, for him, when he was coming into Leesville, there was a different strategy than a VA loan. A lot of military will do that. They purchase homes that are not the high-end homes. So you wouldn't purchase $300,000 to $400,000 house probably and turn it into a rental. But in our area, you could buy, and I realize we've got listeners all over the country, but in our area, you could buy a nice house. Our average sales price is $175,000 to $200,000. So you could buy a home for $150,000 that would be nice. They wouldn't be living on post or on base. They could actually have their own home, but then they may decide, I'm going to turn that into a rental. At that point, if they've never done that before, they just heard about a friend doing it, then you share with them, well, here's some of the downside of renting the property. What if you can't find someone to rent it, then you're going to have to pay the notes. You give them counseling on that. So there again, 5% down would save them a ton of money if they're planning on selling this house in 36 months, or if they're going to turn it into a rental. Once again, if they're active duty military, we don't know what the government's going to do. We don't know when they're going to get PCS. They only have an idea. So we can say, worst case scenario, you leave in 3 years. Here's what the scenario would be. Does all that make sense?
It makes sense. And I just want to make sure we call out to the fact that it's, lots of families, you're not doing the planning horizon in 2 or 3 years. You're doing it 5 to 7 years. Right. But it's so often with a military family, you always want to make sure, hey, we show monthly, we show cash to close, and then we look at it that, you may be deployed and find out from the family in 18 months, 2 years, 36 months. And then to your point, that remember, the whole idea here is for you to deliver a level of value to the family beyond what any other loan officer would do. And it's truly in their best interest. And they do, the fact that they move around, there's an opportunity to build wealth with real estate. So,
exactly.
Tell these stories, and deliver this value. Don't just deliver a fee worksheet. That is not showing a military family that I listen to you and I care about you. I want to educate you. So let's do this next one. I'm not sure what the story or the strategy is that you're driving here, but why don't you tell us what your thoughts are on the VA seller buy now?
This would be more, we have a lot of properties. You talked about seller buy downs. Is that when you're negotiating, a lot of times the realtor will say, well, we'll lower the price by this much, maybe by 5%. We'll lower the sales price for 3 to 5%. Well, this is just showing, well, maybe you don't lower the price. Maybe you just give, you've got some seller concessions. And with VA, it could be up to 4%. So if you look at those figures, someone buying a $350,000 house, okay, I'm getting my glasses out here to look at it. So someone purchasing a $350,000 house right there, you know, that's the standard. Well, someone, let's just say a realtor says, well, I'm going to reduce it by $13,000. Well, that would lower their note by $71. And you know, that's significant, but not a lot. But what if instead of lowering the sales price is that you actually came in with seller concessions, and you see what the difference is? It got that rate down like almost a full point, and then look at the difference in the payment. It made a significant impact on that payment by just using that money wisely. Using that money. This is a great strategy for people to take to realtors to say, this is how you can sell it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's so much dynamic opportunity here. One thing I want to make sure we notice, it's about a 3-to-1 impact. You know, when you look at the payment difference, you get 3-to-1 value with the rate buy down versus the price reduction. So if you are in a military town, or you're serving a property that is attractive to military, or you're serving a buyer who's trying to negotiate, this is a great strategy. So make sure you follow this. Also, I'm going to put a link down below to the Mortgage Coach Seller Buy Down Playbook. Super valuable place. So, and by the way, if you have questions or you have other strategies you want to share, let us know. So let's talk about this one, the VA principal reduction. What's the strategy you're driving? What's the story you're trying to create here?
Well, so a lot of veterans, they get basic allowance for housing. So they're going to get this allowance in their pay that covers housing. Well, a lot of them will get in the home. And so that they've been on base. Well, all of that money has been going back to the government. We always say, you know, buy a house, let the government pay your house note. That's, you know, one of the strategies, because you're going to get that BAH no matter what. No matter how small of a place you get on a base, it's all going to go back. It's all going back in. So if your BAH is larger than your house note, why not put all of it on the house note? Why not take everything that you've been turning over to someone anyway and continue doing that? And this is if you look at this, especially if you think you are going to be leaving, you know, that is one of the questions that I ask Dave for someone who's active duty. How long do you think you're going to be here? And they just think, well, I don't know, but probably this. And we said, well, you think, and I've had people go, oh, I'm here. I mean, I've got this guarantee I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here. It's the government, so who knows? But when you show them this, like, what if you just paid, and just look at the difference of the payment of a 25-year and a 30-year, and, you know, not much difference in that, right? And then you look, when you sell your house, how much equity you would have if you just put a little bit extra money that you're going to have on your BAH anyway. Now, I tell them that. I'm going to tell you a sad fact. Dave, a very sad fact is that unemployment rate for spouses, for military spouses, is much higher than civilian rate unemployment. And a lot of that is when they have to PCS. So you picture, Dave, let's just picture you're a real estate agent in Portland, Oregon, and you're doing awesome, and you're married to someone in the military. Well, they get orders that they're going to Leesville, Louisiana. And, you know, you're married, so you're going to follow them. That real estate practice in Portland is not going to play out in Leesville, Louisiana. So you have lost that income. Unless you're in medical or you're in, you know, education, a lot of other things that transfer, it's harder because you got to build. So when I tell them this strategy, many of them, they don't make much money, and you probably know that, Dave. So right. It's one of those things that I share with them, that this is how you can do it. But I also know the statistics is there are more military families that are having to rely on food stamps just to get by. It is one of the things that I share. But our military families, it's not just a sacrifice of the one who's serving, but it's a sacrifice by the entire family. And so being sensitive to, they may need every penny, and they may be, you know, going to get a house so they can use that extra money just to help pay their other bills. So it's a challenge. Now, the good news is, it's a great performance rate for VA. VA loans are performing and have a low foreclosure rate. And that's because they'll do whatever they have to do to pay that note if they can.
No doubt. So guys, I hope everybody in this call is getting the takeaway that, first of all, you're getting some ideas, you're getting some tactics, and that every time you serve a military family, deliver the total cost analysis so they can know the options. You're here to educate them, not just for this transaction, but to educate them for a lifetime. So by the way, I would love to get another loan officer from the community. And I noticed that Rick Bettencourt is on the call. Rick, I don't know, Marcy, if you could promote him so we can unmute him and have a bit of a conversation with Rick. And I would also just love to share another strategy, another mortgage strategy. Hey, Rick, by the way, Louise, have you and Rick met each other before?
Have not met Louise yet.
Hi, Rick.
How you doing?
So by the way, Louise, you guys would be friends. Rick is in about 30 minutes outside of Boston, incredible mortgage professional, president of NAM. By the way, thank you for your service to our industry, Rick. And then Rick, you serve a lot of military families. That's like one of your specialties, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm and I balance any given year from between 75% to about 83% VA.
Oh, wow.
Up here north of Boston in a non-military. We don't have any large active bases up here. We have two, but they're mostly for Reserve Army National Guard units. You got Westover out west, and you got Hanscom, plus a couple coastie stations up along the East Coast. So it's not I don't have a Hood, a Bragg, a Lackland Air Force Base, or a Benning that I can, that I have the ability to work with. So yeah, but it's almost about 80% of my monthly clientele are military families.
Yeah, well, I was in your office a few weeks ago when I was in Boston, yeah. and Louise, like I said, you guys would be great friends. Definitely a heart to serve those who have served. Why don't you just, I want to save the last 10 minutes for some Q&A with Louise, but I had pulled up a TCA that you shared, and I noticed you put a video on it. By the way, how often do you add a video to the total cost analysis?
I try to do a video on every single one. I like Louise had mentioned, I use GoToMeeting. I paid for it my own. I do a lot of work across New England, and I do some VA in Florida. I like having the personal interaction face to face with that veteran. It's the least I owe them that because of all the service that they've done. So they see me and I get to see them. And matter of fact, just closed one about 30 minutes ago, and that entire application was done via GoToMeeting, and then I used the TCA on that one as well to put a little video. But I put a video in every time. I think it's awesome, whether it's the phone or I'm using my camera here on the desktop.
So, and by the way, guys, the reason that's so important, especially with the military family, is there's multiple stakeholders, and sometimes there's spouses overseas, they're not all in the same room together. Yeah. So even if you meet them in person, even if you meet them on Zoom or some other solution, you put their numbers together, you put a video on it, and now they really have something that they can self-educate around. So why don't you walk us through this? By the way, folks, we will put a link to Rick's and Louise's TCA. It'll be in the link down below if you're watching the recording, and it will also be in the Facebook thread. But Rick, why don't you just kind of walk us through what you did here? Yeah. Kind of share your best practices.
Yeah, this soldier was a Boston police officer. Whenever I'm doing this is a refinance. So whenever I'm doing the refinance, I try to get I have the ability here in Boston to download a lot of documents from the Registry of Deeds. So I'm kind of a real freak about getting details to make sure that I have everything. So numbers don't lie, right? Math is math and facts are facts. So you can't really, it's unequivocal. So I was able to get some data from the online registry, but he gave me, I knew when he got the mortgage. I knew when the first payment was. He told me the interest rate because I always get a copy of the mortgage statement for my team. That way they can order the payoffs or whatnot. That's always a part of one of my requests. And I was able to plug him into your TCA as far as where they're at now. And then I put in what our estimate was that day. But then, you know, there's the other guys, the large sort of online lenders that kind of what I feel in many respects don't have the veterans benefit at their best. And so this particular example was one of the other guys, you know, clearly it was 3 gates higher. We're very aggressive in the VA jumbo world, and that's pretty much for us. That's my average VA loan is about 380, but it's not unusual for me to do 1.1, 1,050,000 or around that. So I was able to plug in the other competitors' rate. I know that they were charged an origination fee. It was explained to me, and that's generally their MO. So I was able to quickly show them, you know, I mean, it was just, they were going to work with me one way or the other because of the details and my attention to detail with them working on setting everything up. But I put the other guy's information on there just as sort of the proverbial nail in the coffin. That way they could see, you know, savings over 60 months, payment differences, interest over 30 years. The follow-up conversation to get the acknowledgement to pull credit and the intent to proceed was literally a 10-second phone call. He's like, yeah, Rick, that's awesome. No problem. Go run with it. And, you know, I think what happens in our business is that too many loan officers that are trying to work on VA don't appreciate the fact that this isn't really a loan program, okay? People need to understand that under the codified federal regulations of the United States, this is an actual federal benefit that they earned with their honorable service to our country. So when I go into an application, me or my team or the LOs that I teach or wherever I speak, you know, I tell them, listen, man, you are going to be sitting down working with a benefit. The least that you can do is do the best that you can, get as much as you can, and treat them like you'd want to be treated if you were talking about one of your benefits. So how would you feel if someone did a crappy job with you trying to get your health care, your health insurance, your vision, your dental? This is their benefit. And it's so, you know, I put the video in there to try to articulate as much as I can without being too long. I try to keep it under 3 minutes. And then every single video with my military, it's a sincere thank you for your service to our country. And my staff is here to do whatever you can do. And it you know, it's just not BS. I just do it because I owe us civilians owe more. And that's why I put that video out there, and I'm as heartfelt as I am. But it works, man, and it's they appreciate it.
Well, you are truly a servant leader, my friend, and I'm grateful for the value you bring to our community, and grateful to have you on there. Louise, you know, I want to give you two a chance to chat. I don't know if you have any questions or any comments after hearing Rick's process and how he delivers value.
I love that. It's known, it was started out as the GI Bill of Rights, and we got to think about it. It's the GI Bill of Rights that, as he indicated, it is part of their benefits. And nothing drives me more insane is if a seller will not accept a VA contract. That literally like sends me over the edge, because I'm thinking that veterans, that active duty military, that veteran, his rights were just violated. And so I appreciate what he said about that. That is good. And
well, that's a great point, Louise. You know, there's actually 6 states in the union that actually have identified veterans as a protected class.
Yes.
You know,
we just need to make it national.
Well, that's one of the things. Funny, that's one of the things that the National Association of Mortgage Brokers, NAMB, that's one of the things that we're working on as a VA protected class, an amendment to fair housing, fair lending, or ECOA. We've already had some great conversations. Not to digress, but you know, there's 6 states. If you're in one of those states, it's Massachusetts, New York, Wisconsin, Ohio, Illinois, and I believe Washington State. Those are the 6 states that actually have veterans as a protected class. And not accepting an offer on a transaction, I mean, highest and best is one thing, but if you're specifically saying, we're not accepting your offer because you're a VA loan or you're a veteran, in Massachusetts, I've called out real estate professionals and said, listen, I will put a lis pendens on your house. I will file a, oh yeah.
I love you.
I had a situation where we had a commitment issued. It was a TBD commission. The commitment was issued. Highest and best in a text, the individual says, we're not accepting it because of VA. And I explained to them the statute. They went back. I said, here's how it's going to happen. You're going to accept the offer, or I have a consumer protection attorney that will, for free, and you've got to love social media, for free, we will put a lis pendens on the house. I will tie the house up in litigation. I will file a discriminatory violation against you with MCAT and Mass, but my veteran will go buy a house, but I'll tie this up for 6 months. and you can't do that. I said, yes, we can. And next thing you know, they accepted the offer next morning. We closed in 21 days. It was great.
This guy's a watchdog, and that's what I always say. We need more watchdogs that's going to stand between the warrior and the wolves. And there are wolves out there, and the very idea that they could be discriminated against. And Dave, I think you met Ben Lunak that traveled with me. He lost a leg. I think you met him at one of our events.
I did. Yeah, absolutely.
He lost a leg, and when I'm teaching a class, I talk about this. And he said he bought the 7th house he wanted. There were 6 contracts. They would not. So, here's a Marine who served, lost his leg, and yet he cannot buy the house he wanted. You tell me there's not still discrimination in America. There is. So,
all the time.
Arizona. So I just can't wait to see the progress that you guys make, because that'll be amazing. And that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Well, we're working on it, and any help or contacts that you might have, you can reach out to me. I'd love to speak to those legislators or those contacts. But yeah, it's something I've been, really near and dear to my heart. So, but yeah, I'll tell you, she's seen it, I've seen it, we've all seen it.
So it's great to have both of you on this call. I wanna remind everybody we are in a mastermind right now. So if you have a question for Louise, for Rick, or after this call, I pulled up our Facebook group. By the way, we are 3 people from passing 5,000. So, everybody that's on this call, we could literally pass 5,000 while we're on the call. You have the superpower, in case you didn't know it, you're looking at my screen right now, where you can add members. So you could go into the Facebook group. There's a little button right here, said add a member. Now make sure it's a mortgage professional. Make sure it's someone cool that we want in the group, someone that you think would add some value. If it's, we want cool mortgage professionals that are serious about professionalism and value. But if you know someone like that, literally, we could cross the 5,000 mark right now. Just go in and add a name. If 3 of you added 3 names, we would go past 5,000 live on this call. So by the way, Rick, you've been on this whole call. Do you have any questions for Louise? Anything that you want to ask her?
No, it's always a pleasure, to meet other mortgage professionals that are as dedicated as I am, and work to help the military. So I thank you for your service. I mean, we're kind of like public servants, and I think there's no better way to kind of give back in our industry than serving those that have served us. So I think it's great, Louise.
And thank you, Rick. You're amazing. That just warms my heart. I'm telling you, I was like, oh, I found a buddy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I might talk funny. I don't say my eyes, but it's okay.
Hey, by the way, guys, we just crossed 5,000. I don't know if you can see it on my screen.
Cool, man.
Boom. So for all you that helped us push across the 5,000 limit, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But more importantly, just like you are part of a group of America's most professional, most successful mortgage professionals, please, the way it becomes a great group is if you're asking questions and then you're contributing with comments. So you are in this group now. Make sure you are active. Let's see what kind of questions we have. By the way, Louise, this question just came in. What are some of the mistakes you see? Just call it loan officers that don't specialize in helping the military. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see?
Probably not listening to the story to find out what is the plan for the next. They assume that an active duty military client would be put in the same category as a civilian. They're going to be in this house for 5 to 7 years. That's an assumption that's not right if they're active duty military. And that's the story. Also, how long do you plan to stay? When you're doing the pre-qual, it's just finding out, what are your plans for the future? Are you going to retire? Are you in the Army for life? Or, if they say, well, we're going to retire in 2 years, we're going to live here, that's different than, no, we're going to move back to Ohio and live, and we're going to sell this house, we're going to make a rental. So finding out the story, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that loan officers make, is not listening to their story.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So we are in the final 5 minutes now. It is Thanksgiving week. I'm super grateful for the military. I'm super grateful for both of you to bring this leadership and this value to this community. But what advice do you have for every loan officer on this call, whether they're, they have a VA specialty, or let's just say they haven't done a VA loan? What what advice do you have for folks as they take action over the next week or two?
I mean, if their
go
interest
ahead.
is, if the interest is working with military, reach out to your family and friends. I mean, everybody knows military. The first thing you got to do is, if you're in an area like mine, I mean, Louise has a very active military population where I don't. So you got to kind of understand your demographics or your geographic limitations that you might have as far as the military. If you do get a chance to work with a veteran, Louise is spot on. Know the story. One piece that I always kind of hammer home, and I think Louise will be on spot with this one, is make sure you calculate your residual incomes correctly, because that's where you can mess up. You can mess up a veteran's application very quickly if you're not paying attention. It's the little things like that: child care expense, residual income. Those are two very, very key pieces where inexperienced loan officers, those are the first two areas that I train on, so they understand. But that's what I would say. Focus on geographic location. If you find a veteran, do your normal pre-qual, but focus on residual income, and then ask the question if there's any child care expenses, because those will, right, Louise? Those will hurt you if you don't pay attention.
They will. We actually have a little webinar that we do that's landmines that can impact landmines that can blow up your closing. And you just nailed some of them right there. But we have this little webinar that we send out that my operations and manager did. So those are crucial. And you know what? We're thankful, Dave. We're thankful. Here we are. This is military. You think about November. It is actually Military Family Appreciation Month. We had Veterans Day. November 10th was actually the birthday of the United States Marine Corps. So many things happen in November that make us think about the military. And of course, we're all thankful because our security depends upon men and women to continue to sign up. We're an entire volunteer military. There is no draft. And just be thankful for the men and women who get, you think about, Dave, every day in America, there's a young man or a young woman that wakes up, gets up, dresses up, and shows up at a military recruiting office where they sign up and they put their name on a blank check made payable to the United States of America and the citizens therein, and they don't know what's going to be filled in that blank check. It could be their limbs, it could be their emotional or their physical health, it could be their marriages or their relationships with their family, but they do it anyway because there's a call on their life to serve, and they don't make much money. And so as we think about this, what are you going to do to give back? I think everybody needs a give back program. No matter what it is, find a nonprofit that you investigate. And I think this is important. Find a nonprofit that the majority of the proceeds you donate actually go to the cause. Join with a local organization that gives back to veterans. To me, it's about giving back, and it's more than, in my world, it's more than just about mortgages. Yes, but what about the men and women who cannot afford a mortgage, that may never because of difficulties they have? What about the 22 that take their life every day because of post-traumatic stress? So you know what? Establish a give back program and do one thing. And my philosophy is none of us can do everything, but all of us can do one thing. And let's go out there and do one thing and help the veterans of America today.
Love that. So we are going to close today's call with that thought: go out and do one thing. Be thankful and grateful for your military, and do one thing over the next couple days by the end of the week. So this call is a wrap. Louise, so grateful to have you. Rick, thank you for jumping in and adding some value.
Thanks,
Hopefully you got value from today's call. If you're watching the recording, give us a like it if you got value from it, and share it with your mortgage friends. Take care, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.